And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis, and as always, is my beautiful co-host Laraib, and we are super excited to go ahead and break down Week 7 of the NFL season. Laraib, we are nearing that half-season marker. It's going by pretty quickly. Been a fun season so far. You're up 4-2 on the picks right now. I got a lot of making up to do, but this is definitely going to be a good week for me. So I'm feeling pretty good. How are you feeling?
You know, yeah, I never know how I'm feeling about these games. But before we start, I just want to say happy birthday to you, Lewis. Happy Jordan year 23 when you
LeBron
guys are
year.
watching this
Thanks.
on Thursday. Jordan year, of course, not LeBron, Jordan. There's no one else I'd rather have as my co-host for this podcast. You're always dealing with my stuff, always hearing on and on about all my different teams in the NFL. So thank you for that. And I just wish you many more birthdays and many more years together on the podcast. But without further ado, Lewis, let's go ahead and get into Week 7 in the NFL. Of course, we have a couple teams on bye this week.
We have
Six to
six
be
teams on bye.
exact. Yep.
Yeah.
The Bengals, Cowboys, Titans, Jets, Panthers, and Texans all on bye. And so that means for you guys in this episode, a little bit more condensed games that we're going to pick. Of course, we'll give you all of our picks for all games, but just a fewer games that we're going to highlight this week. And so let's get right into it, Lewis.
And before you start, programming note, we did already preview the Jaguars Saints game Thursday Night Football in our last episode. And like we mentioned, we will be at that game. So we are filming this on Wednesday night. Some of these lines might change throughout the week. But as we are filming this here at 5:40 on Wednesday, these are how the lines sit. So, Laraib, you can go ahead.
All right. Yep. Let's get into it with our first game, a divisional matchup in the NFC South. The Atlanta Falcons traveling to Tampa to play the Buccaneers. Buccaneers 2.5, Lewis. And I'm loving the Bucs in this one. The Falcons, you're just telling me how bad the Bucs have been at home, but the Falcons have been god awful on the road. Since last season, they've been 1-9. Desmond Ridder 0-4 on the road in his career, and he's only thrown one touchdown on the road so far. And now you're facing the Bucs team, which defense is solid. They kind of had to let up against the Lions last week after they kept on being put on the field in bad positions. But in this one against the Falcons team, we saw get dismantled by the Commanders last week, I'm loving this Bucs team.
Yeah, I agree with you, Laraib. I think this is a really bad matchup for Atlanta in this one. I think the strength of this Tampa defense is absolutely their run defense. And I just don't think Desmond Ridder on the road, and like you mentioned at the stat, 1-9 is the last two seasons, and it's not looking any prettier. Tampa has a good defense that matches up very well with this Atlanta front. So they take away the run game, they take away the play action. What can Desmond Ridder do for their team? I mean, he's a decent scrambling quarterback, but I just think, the strength of this Atlanta team is their running game. And if that gets handicapped, then there's not a lot of options outside of that. We know what Arthur Smith likes to do, and that's establish the run. Give his defense some time because that defense, Laraib, also is not good on the road. And the biggest weakness is their pass defense. We saw Baker Mayfield miss a lot of open guys last week. I think the script reverses. I think he hits those guys. And I think Tampa wins pretty comfortably in this ball game, Laraib.
Yeah, for sure. We saw Ridder have plenty of opportunities late in that game against the Commanders, but he just had 3 really bad interceptions that kind of closed out for them. I think we know the Baker cycle play bad one game, and he's going to be riding high for this next one. So give me the Bucs at home, 26-21 as they cover at home.
Well, Baker hasn't called out the doubters yet. You forgot that part. So maybe he loses this week, Laraib, and then the doubters get called out, and then then he plays good. But I'm with you, Laraib. I also have the Buccaneers. I'm going 27-17 in a pretty sizable margin. But divisional games, you never know. Our next game up, very exciting game, almost game of the week. You have the 5-1 Lions, America's sweethearts right now, going to Baltimore to face the Ravens. Ravens favored by 3 in this game, Laraib. And I think this is a very interesting game because there's 2 very different styles of play. The Ravens, super physical defense, up front, a lot of different packages that they like to throw at you. They're the number 1 team and covering the middle of the field. That's where guys like Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown have been effective all season long. And they're just a super physical team. Lions, no David Montgomery in this game, I believe. And so Jahmyr Gibbs, who might come back this week. We'll see if they'll be able to run the ball. And, They weren't able to run the ball effectively against the Bucs last week, so they aired it out. They threw it against not a great pass rush in the Buccaneers. So against this Ravens front, who isn't the greatest pass rush, but they have a lot of dudes and they just play very smart gap football, and that'll allow them to get to Jared Goff, bother Jared Goff. And I know Jared Goff just had a big win on the road, but historically, he's not that great of a road quarterback. His numbers dip, and this is a really tough spot at Baltimore against that savage defense. I just think they're going to have a tough time. And we've seen it all. The theme of this NFL season is when you think you're at the top, you get humbled very quickly. We saw it with the Dolphins. We saw it last week with the 49ers. We saw it with the Cowboys. And honestly, if the theme holds true, Laraib, we're going to see what the Lions this week. I like Baltimore in this matchup.
And I have to agree with you. I know you talked about the front seven for this Baltimore, Lewis. What's really stood out to me so far has been their secondary. Second in pass yards allowed this year. And I think that's really what's going to hinder Jared Goff. Like you mentioned, he doesn't play well on the road, and he specifically doesn't play well in those outdoors. I know he's gotten real used to playing in that indoor dome over there in Detroit, but this is going to be a nasty game over there in Baltimore. And so, you never know what the weather's going to be like. It's starting to get a little bit cold, Lewis. And like you mentioned, whenever your starting running back
64 degrees, nice, good football weather.
Football weather, but not what it's like in the dome where it's nice and comfortable over there. This is going to be in Baltimore without your starting running back. We know what the run game really does for this Detroit Lions offense. Really opens up the play action. And so without David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, really hasn't, shown us that flash yet, running the ball at least. I think the Ravens are in a good spot in this one at home with that secondary. I think they get it done in a close game. I think this is going to be the second best game of the week. We'll talk about the best game of the week in a little bit, but I like the Ravens to win by a field goal, 27-24.
Yeah, I like the Ravens in this one as well. We didn't mention Lamar, but he's been very quietly super effective all season long, getting it done with his legs, getting it done with his arm. Despite all the drops that we saw in that Steelers game 2 weeks ago, it seemed like he was clicking last week. It seemed like this offense was playing a lot better. And, I just think the Ravens have kind of turned a corner. And against this, this Detroit secondary, which I was talking about, a lot of injuries, a lot of question marks. Lamar Jackson is the quarterback to really test that. So we'll see if they can stay true to that formula in this ball game. But I also have Baltimore. I'm going Baltimore 28 to Detroit 24. So I have Baltimore covering and as well. Next game up, Laraib, we have the Los Angeles Rams hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. Rams favored by 3. And I feel like this is our obligatory time every time the Chargers or Rams have a home game to say it'll probably be a road game. You'll see those damn terrible towels swinging in the stands. So really, the 3 points is telling me that they think the Rams are basically 4.5 points better than the Steelers team. Now, if we were just picking spreads at this point, I would love the Steelers at this number. But, our rule for upsets is it has to be below the 3.5 point mark to be deemed an upset. Earlier in the season, I threw Laraib a bone. I threw him an extra point. And now I kind of want it back for me. So I'm taking it back, and I'm telling you, I'm picking the Steelers. Here's why. So far, the Rams offense has been pretty solid. Their offensive line really hasn't been tested that much. They've played some good defense like the 49ers, but they've still been able to do a lot of damage. You get Cooper Kupp back, and this offense, just the receivers have been so strong all year that they felt comfortable enough to move Van Jefferson, via trade to the Falcons. But I just think against this tough Steelers defense and all those fans roaring, they're going to have struggles in this game. And Matt Stafford, every other 2 games, he's due for a 3-interception scratching your head stinker. Last time we saw that was against the Bengals on Monday night. I think this is another time for him. Low expectations entering this game. They're favorites. And I just think TJ Watt and Nick Bonito, another stud for them, Cole Holcomb, they're going to be able to get to the quarterback in this game. The real question is, how is this secondary going to stand up against his pass attack? Well, if you can get to Matt Stafford, get him uncomfortable. No Kyron Williams in this game. Kyron Williams, starting running back, who's played very well all season, will not be playing in this one. So now they have Zach Evans, a former backup for the Bengals, putting him in this spot. And we know Sean McVay loves to run the ball. They traded away Cam Akers. So this is your only legit running back on the roster this week. So it's going to be a really tall task for this Rams offense to get things going. So that matchup is very favorable for the Steelers, in my opinion. I like the Steelers in this one.
And I have to disagree. You talking about Matthew Stafford, what could have easily been one of his worst seasons in the NFL. He had every excuse. Talk about this Rams team. We're lacking positional players all across the board. Just their depth was really low. And still they're coming out and they're fighting Lewis, and they're at 3-2. And they've been surprisingly well on offense and surprisingly stout on defense as well. They haven't played some of the best teams in the league, but now you're facing a Steelers team who has looked anemic on offense. Even at their hockey games in Pittsburgh, they're calling for Matt Canada's head. And now you're traveling to Los Angeles in the West Coast games. Mike Tomlin in his career is 3-7 playing in that West Coast time zone. And so I think going into the Rams house, they still have to travel to the West Coast, even though there's going to be a lot of Steelers fans in this one. You talk about the injuries for this Rams running back group, but obviously the prowess of their offense has been the passing attack. So as long as you have Matt Stafford out there, as long as you have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua out there, I think this Rams team gets it done at home against the Steelers team, which plays really well off the bye. But like I mentioned, when they're playing in those West Coast games, Mike Tomlin does not have the best record. So give me the Rams in this one.
Yeah, well, the stat you neglected to mention is Steelers, is specifically Mike Tomlin, coming off a bye week, 64-23 in his career. And they've had time. They may have been gotten over there earlier. I'm not exactly sure what the travel was for the Steelers, but get acclimated to the time zone, get acclimated to all that. They had the week off to prepare, tinker some things within the offense. We saw George Pickens had a huge game against the Ravens in the last win that they had. So I think that some of that chemistry can carry over. Some of the other dynamics from their offense that were successful. Hopefully Matt Canada got into the lab and tinkered some things up. You're shaking your head, but I'm saying they did. Give me the trusted program in this ball game, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Who can you trust on this Steelers offense? What are you yapping about over there, huh?
Offense, sure, but I can trust the grit and grind of Tomlin and the Steelers defense. They find ways to win, Laraib, and they're going to win this ball game. Give me the Steelers. I'm going 17-16 game winner in this ball game.
And I'm going 27-20. The Rams blow them out of the water. I don't trust anybody on the Steelers offense. You can give me anybody as long as you have Matt Canada at the helm in the coaching or in the offensive coaching position. Give me the Rams in a big statement win at home. But let's go ahead and move on to another game. We have the Los Angeles Chargers. My Chargers going into the Lions Den to play the Chiefs. Chiefs -5.5 in this one. And I'm loving the Chargers after a short week against the Chiefs. After a bad game from my boy Jay Turbo, I think they still go into the Lions Den and they turn it up on offense. I think Justin Herbert kind of cleans up some of his mess against that he had against the Cowboys and whenever he's facing this Chiefs defense. Now, I will say, of course, whenever you're talking about the Chiefs, it's always going to be Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. But so far this season, what's really been surprising to me has been how well that defense has been playing, Lewis. We always talk about how they come alive in the last 1/3 of the season, but this year they've been firing out of the gate with their boy coach Steve Spags over there on the defensive side. And I think Justin Herbert is going to have a hard time in this one, but he does just enough to beat this Chiefs team.
I strongly disagree with you. And, I mentioned it in the last game we talked about, but Chargers, this is a really tough spot for the Chargers. They're coming off a short week, Monday night, going to Arrowhead, and then they're facing the Chiefs, who Andy Reid, Mahomes, coming off a Thursday night football game where they played at home. So the Chiefs didn't go anywhere. They've been there, 10 days off getting ready for this game. And just, they understand this opponent. They know it well. The Chargers have given them big fights in the past. So honestly, 5.5 is a pretty good looking line. But at the end of the day, the Chargers are just going to charger it up. And the Chiefs have a pretty bad habit this season. It's kind of been they don't really blow teams out. We see teams like the Bills and the 49ers, once they taste weakness, they steamroll you. But the Chiefs just kind of like play with their food, keep teams in games. It's a really bad habit, but it kind of works because come playoff time, they've been in all these close games and they know how to navigate these situations. But I think this is a game where they take care of business. Obviously the Chargers are the inferior opponent. I don't think they'll be able to get a pass rush whatsoever. They didn't get a pass rush against Dak. And we talked about the damage that Dak did against them getting out of the pocket. I think
Herbert.
Mahomes will be able to do the exact same thing, getting out of the pocket, being creative. In 10 days, there was a sneaky trade today, Laraib. Chiefs traded for McCole Hardman, bringing him back. Who knows if
Doesn't
he'll be
move me
active and ready for this
whatsoever.
game? But, he probably still knows this offense. He knows Mahomes. That'll be just another weapon for this Chiefs offense. I think they have a huge game in this one. I'm going to go Chiefs 26 to Chargers 20.
And what I really liked from that Chargers defense was bend, don't break against the Cowboys. If they can have some of that same success in this one,
Against one of the worst red zone offenses in
I
the
think this is
entire
going to be one
NFL.
of the closer games of the week and one of the lower scoring games of the week as the defenses show out in this one. Give me the Chargers 17-16 in a statement victory from Jay Turbo after that loss to the Cowboys.
Right, because if they lose, then not looking good for your boys come playoff time. But it is anyway, Laura. I understand. You had to pick an upset, right? Let's move on to I think we can both agree the best game of the week. We have the Las Vegas Raiders traveling to Chicago. Oh, my bad. My bad. We have the Miami Dolphins traveling to Philadelphia to face the Eagles. 2 5-1 teams here, Laraib. Sunday Night Football. Thank God we're getting a great game on Sunday Night Football for the viewing public to enjoy. In this ball game, the Eagles are favored by 2.5 at home. Just Laraib, we saw the Eagles offense struggle late in that game against the Jets. What can they do to kind of fix their problems against this Dolphins team?
It's really going to be going back to what we said on the Tuesday pod. What they do best, running the ball. They're going to ground and pound this Dolphins defense, which really has not been tested all year long, except for against the Bills when they got hammered. And what I really want to focus on is that Eagles front four, not even that front seven. If they get pressure on Tua, we know what happens to him when he gets that hit. When he starts getting hit a little bit, they got demolished by the Bills. And that's why I'm really loving the Eagles in this one. Now, I will say they have a depleted secondary when they lose a lot of guys. Darius Slay did not play last week, and Jalen Carter didn't play last week as well on the defensive line. But I think those two guys should be back for this one. This is going to be a great game. I expect a lot of points to be scored, a lot of fantasy points to be scored. But I still think the Eagles' prowess in this one, just the amount of big games they've played in the last 2 years, I think they get it done at home in this one.
Yeah, this is definitely a clash of styles, like you mentioned. The Eagles' strengths are their lines, offensive and defensive lines. And you mentioned the biggest chink in the armor that we saw for the Dolphins all season is their rush defense. Their defense has not been good whatsoever. That front seven can be exploited. And even on the back end, like they've been getting beat over the top. We saw Bryce Young in his first 2 drives go for 2 touchdowns against them last week. So in this game, when you have Jalen Hurts and these guys who were pissed about how the game ended, I think the attention is going to be running the ball, setting up the play action, fast, quick decisions by Jalen Hurts for this offense. But the other side of the ball is where you have more problems for the Eagles, because I think that this Dolphins offense has just been so explosive, and the quick game is the big part of it. Tua's not even really holding on to the ball for that long. There's a very creative offense, making a lot of things happen. And I think that this will be a high-scoring game, Laraib. And as much as I'd love to try to get one up on you and get this out of you, I simply cannot. I am also going with the Eagles in this ball game. I just think the proof is in the pudding. These two teams are just, so drastically different. The Eagles at home. This is a huge spot for the Dolphins. Like you mentioned, we don't really have any experience that Tua on this stage can get it done in these big spots. Because even last year when they went on a little winning streak with Tua, they flopped against the 49ers, against the Chargers. And then this year, you get some momentum, you flop against the Bills. And now, big stage. They have to prove it to me that they can win in these spots, and how they win will be huge, because I think they need to be able to run the ball. No Devon Achane is really going to hurt them again this week. Raheem Mostert, he's had a lot of touchdowns this season, but can he keep it up? That's to be determined. I don't think so in this game. I like the Eagles. I'm going Eagles 30 to Dolphins 27.
And I'm going with the Eagles 34-31. It is what is
Woo.
going to be a great game on Sunday Night Football. Well, let's go ahead and move on to Monday Night Football. We have the San Francisco 49ers coming off their first loss of the year, going to Minnesota to play the Vikings. The line is at -7, and we have a lot of questionables in this game. We saw Christian McCaffrey let's go down against the Browns, and he's questionable for this game. Deebo Samuel's questionable for this game. Trent Williams is questionable for this game. So a lot of question marks. But the big thing is, Lewis, and the only reason we really need to talk about this game is Kirk Cousins in prime time without Justin Jefferson, and that kind of just shuts the door on any argument for this Vikings team. So give me the 49ers 27-14.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned all the guys who are questionable. The only big injury for me is no Justin Jefferson in this game. I just think he is so valuable to how this team moves the ball. And you could even tell last week that against that Bears defense, which has not been good all season, they really struggled to move the ball in that matchup. And I think against this 49ers defense, not a lot of questionable guys on that side of the ball. They're not going to be able to do much. And even if McCaffrey and Deebo don't play, they still have Brandon Ayuk. I've been really impressed with the rookie. What's his name? The running back for the
Mason?
49ers. Yeah, wait, what'd you say?
Something Mason.
Mason, yeah, Jordan Mason, I think. He's looked pretty impressive in that slot. So I think they'll be just fine with the weapons that they have against this Vikings defense, which has not been impressive whatsoever all season. So I'm with you. I like the 49ers in this spot. Give me 49ers 29 to Vikings 17.
All right, I think that will wrap it up for the games we want to highlight, Lewis. But let's quickly run through all of the rest of the games. Not too many great ones this week, but we got to run through all of them, Lewis. So let me go ahead and ask you. We have the Las Vegas Raiders going to Chicago to play the Bears. Who do you like in this one?
I love the Raiders. I loved how they've been playing so far. Even if it's a Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell, I just think this talent. Max Crosby is having a defensive player of the year type season. And even if, we're getting a backup in Las Vegas, you're getting a backup in Chicago. I don't even remember the guy's name. So I like the Raiders, and I really like the number they're getting in Chicago. Give me the Raiders in this one. I'm going Raiders 20 to Chicago 10.
Yeah, rookie starting quarterback for the Bears in this one. So I like the Raiders as well. Give me the Raiders 20-10 in this one. But let's go ahead and move on. We have the Browns at the Colts, Lewis. Who are you picking in this one?
I like the Browns. I mean, I don't really care who's at quarterback for the Browns in this game. And, according to my theory, this should be when the Browns take their loss. But I just think, again, the battle of the trenches, Cleveland is going to win this one by a mile. I think that the Colts, Gardner Minshew, he played pretty well last week, but this is a whole different animal in this Cleveland defense. I think he gets destroyed in this one. I'm going Cleveland, a lower scoring. I'm going to go 16-7.
Yep, I'll have to agree with you. Another road team that we're picking, but of course, this Browns defense has been on a different level. Give me the Browns 17-10. But let's move on to another divisional matchup. We have the Bills at the Patriots. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Bills in this one after a close game against the Giants last week. I think they come out and put a statement victory against the Pats. Give me the Bills 30-14.
Yeah, I think, Bills have been struggling offensively the past few weeks. This New England defense without two of its best guys, again, just really tough matchup here. And the Bills have kind of historically owned the Patriots since Tom Brady left. So Bills, stomp out all their frustrations, beat New England. I'm going 34-10.
All right, next up we have the Commanders at the Giants. Lewis, who you like in this one?
I'm going Commanders. What have the Giants shown me to have any faith in them? Yeah, they had a good competitive game against the Bills last week, but that's just the Bills playing down to competition. I've liked how this Commanders team has played in the past few weeks. Their pass attack, when they don't get pressure, has looked very good. And I just don't see this Giants defense, unless they send a million blitz in that Wink Martindale scheme, to really get to Howell as much in this game. So give me the Commanders 23-20.
Yeah, impressive victory by the Commanders last week at Atlanta. And now, again, it was that front seven that got after Desmond Ridder. And I think they're going to get after Tyrod Taylor in this one. I think their defense does just enough to win. Give me the Commanders 24-21. But let's move on to another one. We have the Arizona Cardinals going to Seattle to play my Seahawks. 8-point spread, Lewis, and I really don't like that number. I like the Seahawks at home. I think they come out after a stinker on offense last week. They come out and get it done. But I've seen this game many times where we think we're at home facing the Cardinals, who have, bad quarterback play, bad, at least in the offensive system, not that good, and their defense really isn't too great. But whenever they come into Seattle, they always give us troubles. So I like the Seahawks, but I still think the Cardinals cover. Give me the Seahawks 30-24.
Yeah, we'll see how, the Cardinals have been a competitive team all year long, and this is going to be a competitive game, but Gannon's going to get that call. He will at some point during this game. He's done a very good job at stealth tanking, keeping his job, but also making sure he gets that number 1 overall pick, or trying to. The Panthers are really making it tough. But I also like the Bears. I like the Seahawks in this divisional game. Historically, it's been a really tough game for the Seahawks, regardless of what the teams look like. So, this could be a really hard game to watch for you, Laraib. But I have faith in the boys. I'm going Hawks 24-21.
All right, and for our final game, we have the Green Bay Packers going to Denver to play the Broncos. And I'm going with the Packers in this one. It looks like this Broncos team, Lewis, is about to fire sale everybody on their roster. And I think the Packers, despite the lack of offensive showing, I think after a bye week, they go into Denver and pick up a close win, giving the Packers 27-24.
Yeah, I feel like this hinges on Aaron Jones being able to play, because I don't want to, give a half-baked take here, but this Packers offense has been awful. They can't run the ball, and Jordan Love throwing the ball is hit or miss. And I think Aaron Jones just provides so much stability to this offense. A.J. Dillon is not a good running back. People thought that maybe he could, slide in that spot with Aaron Jones missing and be a nice thumper, but he's not. He's mid as all hell. But Aaron Jones provides some electricity to this offense. And against this Broncos rush defense, that would be huge. Because I think even against this Broncos rush defense, A.J. Dillon would still find a way to fall after 3 yards. So I don't want to say it's up to him, but I think he's going to play after the bye week. So I agree with you. I am picking the Packers in this one. The Broncos team just feels like they're dead to rights, and I just don't have a good feeling about them. Aaron Jones, play, because if not, I'd really love to pick the Broncos here.
All right, well, that is going to wrap it up for our picks for Week 7 in the NFL. But before we head out, we're going to give you our locks, upsets, and best bets of the week, Lewis. So you are going first. So what is your upset for this week?
My upset of this week, thank you for giving me that half point, Laraib, because like I said, I use it on those Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers over the Rams. I like the trenches matchups. I think they get it done.
That's just a bad game to pick, in my opinion. Now I'm going with the Chargers. I'm picking the better quarterback in this one. Justin Herbert, after a bad loss, he's going to bounce back and beat this Chiefs team who has owned them, since Patrick Mahomes is coming to the NFL. But the Chargers win in a huge upset, Lewis. But that is going to be our upsets. And so what is your lock for this week?
My lock for this week, Laraib, is those Kansas City Chiefs. I think they get it done at home. I just think they're the better team. They've proven it all year. And the Chargers are gonna find a way to charger, Laraib, and I'm counting on that.
And I think the Taylor Swift drama finally gets to the Chiefs, and they lose one. And for my lock, I'm going with the Los Angeles Rams at home against your Steelers. I just trust Matt Stafford, who's been outstanding this season. Their secondary we know can be had. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, go out there, ball out. And it's just going to be on that defense to stop Kenny Pickett and that terrible offense. Give me the Rams at home by a large margin, Lewis. But before we go, let's do our best bets, Lewis. For my best bet, I'm going to do the Buccaneers at home -2.5. We've already talked about how much this Falcons team struggles on the road. And I think Baker Mayfield is due for a bounce-back game after that loss to the Lions last week.
In my best bet, I've really loved the Raiders. I think they're a lot more talented than they're giving off. This Bears team is in shambles. No Justin Fields. He provided the only real spark to this offense. The backup, again, I haven't even checked to see what his name is. Not because I'm a casual, because I don't care. So they're a bad team, and the Raiders should win this comfortably, even with a backup on their own right, whether it be O'Connell or Hoyer in this ball game, Laraib.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap it up for our predictions for Week 7 in the NFL. As usual, our Thursday night picks is on our Tuesday pod. So if you want to see what our thoughts were for the Jacksonville Jaguars Saints game, go ahead and go to that episode. But before we sign off, Lewis, anything to say?
Hey, I mean, just y'all have a great weekend. Enjoy these football games. I know we will. Yeah, so another week 7 down. We'll be back on next Tuesday for our breakdown of this week. So make sure y'all stay tuned to that. Otherwise, Laraib, I'm good.
All right, this is the First and Goal podcast signing off.
Peace.